A fifth consecutive loss officially eliminates the Blackhawks from the Stanley Cup Playoffs.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome on into Locked On Blackhawks. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. On today's episode, the latest updates out of both the WHL and OHL postseason. Well, there won't be any playoff hockey once again in the Windy City this year. But first, the takeaways from the 3-1 loss to the Edmonton Oilers. Real quick, though, just a reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. I'm really closing in on my goal of 3,000 subscribers, and doing so won't cost you anything. It's 100% free. And also, just a heads up to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks over on Instagram as well. I've been really pumping up that account as of late, posting some cool Blackhawks graphics, updates on their prospects. I also post every goal that's scored by the Blackhawks in all of their games. So make sure to go and show some love to Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram as well. But happy Friday, everyone. Opening things up here on today's show. A fifth consecutive loss, sadly, for our Blackhawks last night to open up their 3-game road trip. As for the third time in as many meetings this season, they went toe-to-toe with the Edmonton Oilers. They gave them a run for their money, but unfortunately came up short as Edmonton sweeps the season series with a 3-1 win at Rogers Place, which vaults them back into first place in the Pacific Division, jumping the Anaheim Ducks. But despite the Blackhawks getting outshot 38-18 last night, it was a wide margin once again, like it's been in each of their games during this 5-game losing streak. They actually had plenty of chances, I thought, to put an end to their losing skid and play spoiler a little bit last night up in Edmonton, because the scoring chances were only 42-32 in favor of the Oilers, but the Blackhawks' lack of finishing and also a lack of simply hitting the target, I think, really came back to bite them. And when they go back and reflect upon this loss, I think they'll really be kicking themselves over the amount of missed opportunities that they failed to convert on, because there are several chances that pop up in my head immediately when I think about the scoring opportunities that the Blackhawks had last night. I mean, both Ilya Mikheyev and Landon Slaggert both failed to hit the net on breakaway chances that would have opened the scoring in the first period. There was also Ryan Donato failing to hit the net on a 3-on-1 early in the third, which had he converted, that would have tied the game up 2-2, and I think really sucked the life out of Rogers Place, but didn't even force Tristan Jarry to make a save. Sam Rinzel had one in the third period as well, where it was either Connor Bedard or Nick Lardis made a great play to set him up in the slot, but completely missed the target on that one. Tristan Jarry, I will say, like, he made a couple of real nice saves throughout the course of the game. One on Ilya Mikheyev on a 2-on-1 rush with his blocker. Another on Connor Bedard on his most dangerous chance of the game. But altogether, I just thought the Blackhawks kind of bailed Jarry out too often by simply failing to hit the net, simply not forcing him to make a save in those types of situations. The Blackhawks, I mean, like I just said, they had 32 scoring chances, but only wound up with 18 shots on goal last night. So just got to do a better job of hitting the target and maybe not trying to be too picky of where you're putting that shot. I mean, maybe even just throw it on net and try to cause a rebound. And that's, I mean, it came off of a breakaway opportunity, but that's how Edmonton scored the opening goal of the game. But it was also kind of fitting that the Blackhawks couldn't take advantage of their breakaway chances from Mikheyev and Slaggert in the first period. Then Adam Henrique gets one early on in the second period. Arvid Soderblom actually had to come in for Spencer Knight, who made his 51st start of the season for the Blackhawks, but early on in the second period was having a little bit of an equipment malfunction. Soderblom had to come into the game cold, makes the initial save on the Adam Henrique breakaway attempt, but then Henrique follows up on the rebound. It was his first goal in 51 games to put the Oilers ahead 1-0. And then their second goal of the game, their only one outside of the empty netter, came on the man advantage. Matthew Savoy with a fortunate bounce as his stuff shot banked in off Alex Vlasic's skate. But the Oilers, they converted on their breakaway opportunity. They converted on their power play, the top-ranked power play in the NHL, going up against the league's best penalty kill unit, even though hasn't been rolling the same since trading Connor Murphy, Jason Dickinson, and Nick Foligno at the trade deadline. But the Blackhawks weren't able to capitalize on their lone power play chance in the game, weren't able to convert on a majority of their best looks. And again, for those reasons, I think this is one that they'll be biting themselves over a little bit. But to make matters worse, the lone goal scorer in the game for the Blackhawks, Nick Lardis, who cut the deficit in half early on in the third period, making it 2-1 with his 9th goal of the season, despite only having played, I believe, 38 games at this point in time. Lardis is now tied with Ryan Green for the most goals among all Blackhawks rookies this season. Unfortunately, though, for Lardis, he had to exit this game early as while he was providing a net front screen in front of Jari, took some friendly fire from a Teuvo Teravainen one-timer from the point. Looked like it caught Nick Lardis in the left hand, and he immediately dropped his stick in pain, headed on over to the Blackhawks bench, and then after they kind of looked at it for 30 seconds or a minute, sent him back down to the tunnel to the dressing room and did not return for the remainder of the contest. We didn't get much of an update from head coach Jeff Blashill after the game, but really keeping my fingers crossed that this isn't going to put an end to Nick Lardis's campaign. What's weird is these left-hand injuries, Blackhawks fans, just seem to be going around right now because Artem Levshunov, of course, as I talked about yesterday, has a fracture in his left hand that's going to put an end to his rookie season. Matt Grzelcyk, we haven't gotten an official confirmation in terms of whether it was a hand, a wrist, or an arm injury that he suffered back on March 22nd against the Nashville Predators while involved with Eric Haula in a post-whistle skirmish. But based on the replay that we saw of that, it sure looked like Grzelcyk appeared to have injured his left hand when he went to go and throw a jab at Haula, and it seemed like his hand might have caught his helmet. Again, not officially sure what the injury is there, but sure appeared to be a left hand injury. So that makes Matt Grzelcyk, who could be banged up with his left hand. We know Artem Levshunov is for sure out with a fracture in his left hand, and now Nick Lardis takes a shot from a Teuvo Teravainen one-timer to his left hand right in front of the Blackhawks net, but really hoping that Lardis won't have the same fate as Levshunov and Grzelcyk, who are expected to miss the remainder of the regular season because it's been a really nice run for Nick Lardis since he's been promoted up into the top 6. He's got 4 goals in his last 7 games. I have liked how he's played on the top line with Connor Bedard, even in the 2 games prior where he didn't wind up on the stat sheet. He was getting his scoring opportunities, getting a lot of chances, and I think altogether moving the puck well with Connor Bedard. And I thought he did that again last night, one of his best plays outside of the goal. And I did love seeing the goal from Nick Lardis, cleaning it up in the dirty areas, as an undersized guy. I love to see that from him. That's what good goal scorers do. Even if you are not the grittiest player in the world, you can score in all types of situations. And to see Nick Lardis bury a greasy rebound last night was very satisfying, in my opinion. But he made a beautiful spinning backhanded feed to set up Connor Bedard right down the slot. So I've liked what I've seen from Nick Lardis up on the top line, up in the top 6 over these last 7 games, and hopefully we'll get another look of him in that spot, as hopefully this one won't cost him the remainder of the season. Blackhawks will not be practicing here today, so we're not going to get an official update on Lardis until the morning skate tomorrow in Seattle on Saturday. So once we do get official word from Lardis, I'll bring it all to you right here on Locked On Blackhawks. But there are my thoughts from the Blackhawks. 5th consecutive losses. They fall 3-1 to the Edmonton Oilers and get swept in the season series. And with that, the Blackhawks are now officially going to miss the Stanley Cup playoffs for a 6th consecutive season. Before I get into more thoughts on that, got to give a shout out to one of today's sponsors here on Locked On Blackhawks, which is Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple, but that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast and without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. And what I personally love about Game Time is being able to see the view from my seat before buying, so I know exactly what to expect, both before I arrive and also before I make that purchase. So go and take the guesswork out of buying your NBA tickets right now with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and then use our promo code LOCKEDON in all caps for $20 off on your first purchase. Again, that's LOCKEDON in all caps to get $20 off. Go and download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. Don't forget to go and check out the Locked On Blackhawks Everydayer Club to get ad-free audio, access to our group chat on Discord with me and other listeners of the show, and much more. And you can easily find the link to join the Locked On Blackhawks Everydayer Club down in the description. Segment 2 here on today's episode. We've known that there wouldn't be playoff hockey in the Windy City for a while now, but last night's loss to the Oilers actually made it official. The Blackhawks will miss the Stanley Cup playoffs for the 6th season in a row. And technically, it's been since 2016-17 in which they qualified for a postseason where only 16 teams made it. The last time they technically were in the playoffs was the 2020 COVID bubble. But if my memory serves me correct, 12 teams were granted access into the playoffs because the regular season wasn't able to be finished. And I believe the Blackhawks were the 12th and final team that year in the Western Conference to make it. So had the regular season not have been stopped, they very likely would not have made the playoffs that year. So technically it's a 9-year postseason drought when you really think about it for the Blackhawks. And this is shaping up to be a 4th consecutive year at the bottom of the Central Division, which, listen, during that stretch, I mean, has been widely the best, one of the best, if not the best division in all of hockey. But still, the Blackhawks setting up to be bottom feeders once again. I know they still have 6 games left in the regular season, but they're currently 6 points back of the St. Louis Blues, who are in 7th place in the Central, and the Blues have played 2 fewer games than they have. So I'd be very surprised if the Blackhawks don't wind up being in 8th place once again this season. And just quickly going through a season-by-season, going through the season-by-season results for the Blackhawks since making the postseason, quote unquote, in the COVID bubble. In 2020, 2021, that was the 56-game COVID shortened season. The Blackhawks went 24, 25, and 7 that year with 55 points. That actually had them in 6th place in the Central Division, but that's when the divisions were very mixed up that year. 2021, 2022 is when we got things back to normal. Blackhawks went 28, 42, and 12 that year with 68 points. That was good for 7th in the Central Division. Then in 2022, 2023, they went 26, 49, and 7 with 59 points. That was the year that led to them winning the NHL draft lottery and, of course, selecting Connor Bedard first overall. 2023, 2024, Connor Bedard's rookie season, they went 23, 53, and 6 with just 52 points. That was 8th in the Central Division. And then last year, 2024, 2025, 25, 46, and 11. So that's 5 years in a row, 6 years in a row with 28 wins or fewer. They went 25, 46, and 11, gave them 61 points. Also good for 8th place in the Central Division. And then so far through 76 games here in 2025, 2026, the Blackhawks are 27, 35, and 14, good for 68 points. And they do have an opportunity if they can win 3 of their final 6 games. That would give them 30 wins for the first time since before the COVID bubble playoffs. They currently have 68 points, also on the precipice of reaching 70 for the first time during this stretch as well. But still, as I mentioned, in 8th place currently in the Central Division. But considering the progress, and I know it hasn't felt like progress considering the Blackhawks are still second to last in the standings, but there have been things that I've outlined this year in terms of reason to believe in the Blackhawks turning it around and being a more competitive bunch and possibly being on the verge of knocking off that playoff drought in 2026, 2027, because we know the Blackhawks are definitely going to be more talented than they've been basically in any season during that stretch that I just went through. This year also, they have the most blown leads in the NHL, which I don't think is too surprising when you think about them being now the youngest team in the NHL and being among the youngest teams in the NHL all season long. That is a symptom of a young team and just not having a ton of experience in those situations. And I do feel like, at least hopefully, I don't expect the Blackhawks to be perfect in that regard by any means. Next year, they're still going to be an uber young bunch, but I would like to believe that they'd be better and not blow as many leads as they have here this season. Also, I've outlined the overtime record this season is a huge reason why the Blackhawks haven't been playing more meaningful games down the stretch. They're 7-14 in games that have gone beyond 60 minutes this year, dropped 14 of their 21 overtime appearances. And compare that with young rebuilding teams like the San Jose Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, the Blackhawks have more regulation wins than the Los Angeles Kings do. I think they only have 3 fewer than San Jose this season. So that's a reason to believe in the Blackhawks, you know, kind of faring better in those situations and clawing out a few more overtime victories in 2026, 2027. I would also like to believe Spencer Knight, another, you know, after his first year here as a number 1 netminder, I feel like he'll be a little bit more comfortable in that situation and also have better chemistry with the defenseman in front of him. He'll be a year older and be a year more experienced. And then just thinking about, you know, the Blackhawks forward group, a full season of Anton Frontel, year 4 of Connor Bedard, and I'm sure he's going to be hitting it hard in the summer once again. Frankie Nazar becoming a year older. Roman Kanserov hopefully coming over, and if he does, likely going to be in the Blackhawks top 6. Oliver Moore, thinking he's going to be a full-time NHLer. Same with Nick Lardis. I feel like he's shown that he's worthy of that opportunity. Tyler Bertuzzi's going to be coming back once again. Ryan Green is going to get a year older. Who knows what's in store for, Sasha Boisvert, Marek Vanacker, guys who are going to be trying to prove themselves in training camp. So I think the Blackhawks offense is, while it's still going to be very young, I think it's definitely going to be more potent than we've seen in quite a long time. I have a lot of belief in the Blackhawks power play with Anton Frondel and potentially Roman Kanserov in that bumper role as well, just giving Connor Bedard in the Hawks man advantage more dangerous weapons out there on the ice. I think that's a reason to believe in more success from this group next year. The tough part is they're just going to be so gosh darn young, especially on the defensive side of things. I think that's really going to be the one area where the Blackhawks are going to struggle the most, because they're still going to be inexperienced on the back end next year. And quite honestly, just from a numbers perspective, maybe they bring on one veteran, but I feel like it's going to be a uber young blue line, probably the youngest in the entire NHL. So that's really the one concern as far as the Blackhawks putting it together enough to put an end to this playoff drought in 2026, 2027. But I definitely think the Blackhawks have the capabilities to do what the San Jose Sharks are doing this year, right? Being right on the edge of ending that long playoff drought. They actually jumped into the second wild card spot with another win last night. I definitely think that's within the cards for the Blackhawks next season, considering the amount of talent that they're going to have, considering the areas that I just mentioned in terms of reason to believe in kind of a bounce back in both in overtime, in games in which the Blackhawks have had the lead. They're going to be more experienced, even though they are still going to be very young. So I'm not going to go out on a limb and say 2026, 2027, that's for sure when the Blackhawks playoff drought is going to come to an end. But undoubtedly, over all the seasons that I just went through in terms of the season by season results, the Blackhawks are set up to have more success next year in 2026, 2027 than any of those seasons that I just outlined. And it'll be very interesting to see how this group is going to fare together next season. All right, there are my thoughts on the Blackhawks playoff drought, unfortunately extending into a 6th year in a row. Coming up in just a moment, speaking of the playoffs, still want to get into the latest updates on the Blackhawks CHL prospects in both the OHL and WHL postseason. But first, got to talk to you about the other sponsor here on today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, which is Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Well, now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. And it's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when the momentum shifts, you can move with it. And I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Well, now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now in order to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. As always, just want to say thank you to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen here to start off your weekend. A heads up that I will be having an episode drop tomorrow where hopefully we'll be getting an update on Nick Lardis' status following the morning skate. I'll be breaking that down and also be going over a preview of the matchup against the Seattle Kraken, which will be the penultimate road game of the 25-26 season for our Blackhawks. But here on segment 3, before I wrap things up, definitely wanted to get into an update on the CHL playoffs with all of the Blackhawks prospects involved in them, as all 3 of the prospects, I guess I should say all 4 of their prospects in the OHL had their first round series close out last night, and all 3 pulled off first round series sweeps, starting with the Brantford Bulldogs, the top overall seed in the OHL this year, swept the Sudbury Wolves 4-0 in the first round and will now advance into the second round and play the lowest remaining seed available, which is still to be determined. But currently, the 5-seeded North Bay Battalion holds a 3-2 series lead over the 4-seeded Peterborough Petes. So could potentially be North Bay, who Merrick Vanacker, Parker Holmes, and the Brantford Bulldogs are going to be facing next. Vanacker, a real strong start to his OHL postseason, going to be his final run in the OHL playoffs, really trying to finish it off with a championship, which, man, I thought they had a great shot to do last year until, unfortunately, Nick Lardis went down with an injury early on in the first round. But in 4 games against Sudbury, Vanacker put up 3 goals and 3 assists for 6 points, had the overtime winner in Game 3 to put the Bulldogs ahead with a commanding 3-0 lead. Parker Holmes, by the way, Blackhawks fans, is not suited up yet for Brantford in the OHL playoffs. He appeared in 49 of their 68 regular season games, so might just be getting healthy scratched, unfortunately, as he's just a guy who really doesn't provide much offense, even though he did do more of that this season compared to his draft year in 2024-2025, where I believe he had just 1 assist in 19 games played. His season was cut short due to injury, but doesn't seem like I haven't seen anything about Parker Holmes being injured, so feel like he's just unfortunately getting healthy scratched by the Bulldogs. We'll see if he draws in at all here in their second round series, which, as I said, could potentially come against North Bay. Then the Kitchener Rangers, the top overall seed out in the OHL's Eastern Conference. They swept the Saginaw Spirit in the first round and will play the winner of the 4-seeded London Knights versus the 5-seeded Sioux Greyhounds. And Sioux currently has a 3-1 series lead over London. So one more win puts them into the second round against Kitchener. Jack Pridham, oddly enough, did not find the back of the net in any of the 4 games in the first round against Saginaw, which is odd considering he was, the second leading goal scorer in the Ontario Hockey League this season, but did wind up with 5 assists in his 4 games played, but definitely would like to see him find the back of the net and help Kitchener out and moving on into the conference final here with whoever they play in the second round. And then the Windsor Spitfires, they made it a perfect 3-for-3 sweep last night for the Blackhawks prospects in the OHL as they took down Guelph 4-0 in their opening round series and will officially play the 3-seeded Flint Firebirds in round 2. AJ Spellacy had 1 goal and 3 assists for 4 points in his 4 games played. Also saw that he dropped the gloves and had a fight last night in their series clincher. Very excited for AJ Spell. I mean, very excited for Merrick Vanacker and Jack Pridham as well, but a different makeup AJ Spellacy brings to the table, and very excited to see him on the professional scene in 2026-2027. Then moving out to the WHL, the lone Blackhawks prospect in that league, Nathan Bain, playing for the Kamloops Blazers. They took on the Kelowna Rockets in the opening round of the WHL playoffs, but unfortunately, Nathan Bain's season has now come to an end as the Kelowna Rockets also pulled off the series sweep over Kamloops. And sadly, Nathan Bain, I actually missed this when it happened over the weekend, might have actually happened last Thursday, but Nathan Bain got injured in Game 2 of the series and unfortunately did not suit up for the Blazers in Games 3 or Games 4, with which they went on to lose both of them. And now his season is over. And in his first 2 postseason games, he did leave Game 2 early, but didn't find the score sheet. So an unfortunate way to end the season for Nathan Bain. But altogether, I thought it was an excellent post-draft year out of him, finishing 9th in the WHL in goals, 10th in the league in points. Fully expect him to be back with the Blazers once again in 26-27. I know they're likely, it seems, making a rule to allow 19-year-old players to play in the AHL next season, but I still don't think, Nathan Bain does have some good size to him, so it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world, but my expectation is for him to return to the WHL, and then maybe, would love to see him be a top 5 scorer in the league next season, and then head into the professional level with some really good confidence as a 20-year-old, but Nathan Bain, the lone Blackhawks WHL prospect, his postseason and his post-draft year has now officially come to a close, while AJ Spellacy, Jack Pridham, and Merrick Vanacker, along with Parker Holmes as well, he just unfortunately hasn't played in any of Brantford's postseason games yet. They all are moving on to the second round of the OHL playoffs. I will continue to provide you all with updates on each of those playoff series as they continue going on. But that's going to take care of today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. As always, thank you all for joining me on the show. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for me. I'm seriously so close to reaching my goal of 3,000 subscribers. And also make sure that you're following Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast. If you want to check me out on social media, you can do so basically anywhere at Jack Bushman 2. My Strictly Blackhawks account, make sure to go and follow that one at Talkin' Hockey on X to get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until tomorrow's episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Fridays. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.